Today, I'll be telling you a story so emotionally charged, it turns a ranch into a battleground, set beneath the endless skies of the Old West, where dust, blood, and honor are never far apart. This is where land is worth killing for, and where crossing the wrong family can seal your fate before you realize it. It began with a single, violent gesture. A small moment that triggered a chain of events powerful enough to challenge an entire outlaw gang. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. A man's legacy isn't counted by how much land he owns, but by the sons willing to ride straight through hell to protect his name. The echo of that slap was still hanging over Hawthorne Ranch when four dark shapes stepped out from the barn. Caleb Hawthorne, 73 years carved by sun, wind, and stubborn resolve, stood steady as blood slipped from the corner of his split lip. The Blackridge Men, 7 hard cases who terrorized 3 counties, had just sealed their fate. They'd come for land, for water rights, for everything the old rancher had built with scarred hands and broken knuckles. What they never bothered to learn was that Caleb had raised 4 sons alone after their mother died, bringing the youngest into the world. He taught those boys to handle rifles before they ever learned their letters. He taught them that honor wasn't something you talked about. It was a line you drew, and if crossed, you defended it with your life. Now the 4 stood shoulder to shoulder, rifles held easy and sure, the posture of men who never wasted a shot. Luke Hawthorne, the eldest at 32, had hands steadier than church bells. Aaron and Isaac Hawthorne, the 28-year-old twins, moved like matching reflections of death itself. While Eli Hawthorne, just 23, carried eyes already aged by hard living. The Blackridge Men had expected a lone, breakable old farmer. Easy prey. Instead, they faced the quiet certainty of justice, raised by blood and loyalty. What followed would be retold in saloons from Texas clear up to Montana. A tale of devotion, violence, and the heavy cost of humiliating a father in front of his sons. I never get tired of seeing how far these stories reach. Now brace yourself. What comes next won't be what you expect. That morning had begun quietly enough. Caleb Hawthorne was repairing fence along the eastern pasture, his hands moving with the practiced ease earned over 50 years of ranch work. The September sun rested warm on his shoulders, and for a brief moment, peace settled in. His sons were out riding the northern valley, checking the herd. Good boys. Men now, really, though he still thought of them as boys. The sound of hooves snapped him out of it. 7 riders appeared along the ridge. Caleb's jaw tightened instantly. He knew the man riding point. Silas Blackridge, a rattlesnake wearing a human face, wanted to cross 3 territories for crimes that turned honest stomachs. Silas and his men had been cutting their way through Montana, buying land cheap or taking it outright when folks refused. "Morning, old-timer," Silas called, his tone soaked in false manners. The riders fanned out, closing in, boxing Caleb against the fence. "Got a little business offer for you." Caleb straightened slowly and met Silas's stare without blinking. "Not interested." Silas smiled thinly. Silas Blackridge grinned, yellowed teeth stained dark with tobacco. "That's where you're mistaken," he said. "We're offering $500 for this spread." "Generous," Caleb Hawthorne replied evenly, "considering my age and your manners. But this land isn't for sale, at any price. It's been in my family since 1862. He lifted his chin toward the rise beyond the pasture. "My wife's buried on that hill. My sons were born in that house. So I'll ask you to turn around and ride out." The smile slid clean off Silas's face. He swung down from his saddle, slow and deliberate, his men following his lead. "That wasn't a negotiation, old man. That was me being civil," Silas snapped. Something you don't seem to appreciate. Caleb's hand drifted toward his hip, but Silas moved faster. The outlaw's palm struck Caleb's face with a crack sharp as a rifle report, slamming the old rancher back against the fence post. Blood flooded Caleb's mouth as he caught himself, fury flashing behind his eyes. "Now sign the papers," Silas ordered, yanking a folded document from his coat. That was when the sound cut through the air. 4 rifle hammers cocked at the same instant. Silas turned slowly. The color drained from his face. The Hawthorne boys stood in a tight line, rifles shouldered, stances locked. Every barrel tracked a target. They'd heard the slap from 300 yards out and came running, spreading wide to command clear lines of fire on every man among the Blackridge Men. Luke Hawthorne spoke first, his voice calm, carrying the weight of command. "Step away from our father." Silas's hand hovered near his pistol, weighing odds that no longer favored him. "You boys have no idea who you're pointing those rifles at." "Oh, we know," Aaron Hawthorne said from the left. "Silas Blackridge, wanted for murder in Wyoming. Armed robbery in Colorado," Isaac Hawthorne added, shifting just enough to tighten the crossfire their father had drilled into them since boyhood. "And for being a gutless coward who slaps old men." Eli Hawthorne, positioned closest to the barn, sealed off the rear. "Looks like you've got 2 choices. Ride out now, or we put you in the ground." He paused. "I'm hoping you pick wrong." Caleb wiped blood from his mouth, pride swelling even as cold fear settled in his chest. 7 against 4 weren't odds he'd ever choose, but his sons didn't waver. He'd raised them right. "This isn't finished," Silas growled, already backing toward his horse. "This land will be ours, one way or another." "Then you'll die trying," Luke replied. "That's not a threat. That's a promise." The Blackridge men mounted up, but Silas twisted in his saddle one last time. "We'll be back with 20 men, enough to burn this place to the dirt and everyone in it." As they rode off, Caleb stepped to his sons and rested a weathered hand on Luke's shoulder. "You boys shouldn't have done that." "Dangerous men," Caleb added quietly. "They became our enemies the moment they touched you," Luke said. "We'll be ready when they return." The 4 brothers looked to their father, then to one another, and nodded. They'd been training for this day their entire lives. That night, the Hawthorne men gathered inside the ranch house, seated around a table worn smooth by years of meals and hard choices. A hand-drawn map lay open before them as Caleb traced the land with a knotted finger. "They'll come after dark," he said. "Try to circle us. Burn us out. Silas won't underestimate us twice." Luke studied the map closely. The house sits low, high ground on 3 sides. "If they're smart, they'll take those ridges first," Aaron said. "So we beat them to it." "Tonight," Isaac added, "before they organize." Caleb shook his head. "We're not murderers. We defend what's ours, but we don't ambush men in the dark, no matter how much they deserve it." "Even if waiting gives them the advantage?" Isaac pressed. "Even then," Caleb answered. "We fight smart, but we fight with honor. That's what your mother would have wanted. That's what I taught you." Eli cleared his throat. "What if we don't wait here at all?" The room went still. "What if we make them come to us, on ground we choose?" Caleb studied him, a faint smile touching his bruised face. The boy had always been the thinker. "Go on." "Canyon Creek," Eli said. "Narrow entrances, high walls, water source. If we move the herd and camp there, we control everything. They'd have to come in single file, Eli continued. Or not come at all. Luke nodded slowly. He's right. We'd see them from half a mile out, Aaron added. Caleb exhaled. It also means abandoning the house. Silence settled over the table. Everything we built can be rebuilt, Aaron Hawthorne said firmly. We can't rebuild ourselves, Caleb Hawthorne replied. Silence settled over the room. The weight of the choice pressed down on every man at the table. At last, Caleb pushed back his chair and rose to his feet. Then we move at first light. Take only what matters. He looked at each of his sons in turn. Drive the herd north and be ready for a fight. They worked through the night by lamplight, sorting what could be carried and what would be left behind. Caleb lingered near a small photograph of Clara Hawthorne, his wife. Her gentle eyes seemed to watch him from across the years. She'd been gone 25 years, yet the ache still sat heavy in his chest. Pa? Luke Hawthorne stood in the doorway. Sun'll be up in less than an hour. We need to go. Caleb slipped the photograph into his coat and took one last look around the house he'd built with his own hands. The kitchen where Clara used to hum while cooking. The bedroom where each of his sons first drew breath. The living room where he taught them their letters by firelight. Memory clung to every board and beam. I'm ready, he said, though his heart said otherwise. They pushed the herd north as dawn painted the sky blood red, a color that felt like a warning. 40 head of cattle, decades of work, now stood between them and ruin. The animals sensed it too, moving faster than usual across the grasslands toward the canyon. By midday, they reached Canyon Creek. Eli Hawthorne had been right. The place was solid. Sheer canyon walls rose 30 feet on either side, with only 2 narrow approaches. A clear stream cut through the basin, and scattered boulders offered natural cover. Aaron, Isaac, take the south entrance, Luke ordered, slipping easily into command. Eli and I'll cover the north. Pa, you stay center with the extra ammunition. Like hell I will, Caleb snapped. I still shoot straighter than any of you. No one doubts that, Luke said carefully. But if one of us goes down, we need someone who can fill any position. That's you. Caleb wanted to argue, but he saw the sense in it. And he saw something else too. The fear his sons tried to hide. Not fear of dying, fear of losing each other. All right, he said at last. But the first sign of trouble, I'm in the fight. They built their defenses from deadfall and stone, shaping firing lanes that would turn the canyon mouths into death traps. As the sun climbed, they worked without speaking, each man knowing his place, trusting his brothers completely. Back at Hawthorne Ranch, the Blackridge Men arrived just after noon. Silas Blackridge at the front, this time riding with 23 men instead of 7. He'd pulled in every outlaw and hired gun within 50 miles, promising easy money and land. What they found instead was an empty house and cold ashes in the hearth. They ran. One of the new men laughed. All that talk and they bolted like whipped dogs. Silas didn't laugh. He dismounted and studied the dirt, reading the story written in hoof prints and wagon tracks. They didn't run, he said coldly. They moved, took everything with them. So we track 'em down, someone suggested. Silas straightened, jaw clenched. You ever try to dig a badger out of its hole? That's what this would be. They picked ground meant to kill us. So what's the play? Rafe Calder asked. Silas looked back at the ranch house, a slow smile creeping across his face. We make them come to us. He turned sharply. Burn it. Burn all of it. The orders spread fast. Torches were lit within minutes. The men swept across the property like locusts, setting fire to everything that would take a flame. The house went first, fire ripping through the wood with terrifying speed. Then the barn, the smokehouse, the coop, the fences. Silas watched the flames climb, satisfied. The smoke would be seen for miles. "Now we wait," he said. "They either come running back for revenge, and we cut them down in the open, or they watch their life turn to ash and know they lost. Either way," Silas finished, "we win." 5 miles north, Eli Hawthorne spotted the smoke first. "Pa," he said quietly, his voice tight with fury. "They're burning the ranch." Caleb climbed to the ridge and looked south. Thick, black smoke rolled into the clear Montana sky, each plume a piece of his past turning to cinders. He stood there a long time, face unreadable. Luke joined him, staring at what remained of their home. He expected anger, orders, an immediate charge. Instead, Caleb stayed silent, eyes distant. "Pa," Luke said softly. "Mama planted roses along that porch." Caleb Hawthorne spoke quietly. 1868. They finally bloomed after the third planting. "She loved those roses," he added. "We can plant more," Luke Hawthorne said, though the words rang hollow even to him. Caleb turned to his eldest son. "This is exactly what Silas Blackridge wants. He wants us angry, wants us reckless, wants us charging out of these rocks so his men can cut us down in the open." He rested a heavy hand on Luke's shoulder. "I raised you better than that." "So we hold," Caleb continued. "We do what we came here to do. We defend this ground. We keep our heads clear. We survive. A ranch can be rebuilt. You boys can't." Luke nodded slowly, the logic settling in even as his blood burned for payback. "And if they come in here," he said, "we remind them why you don't corner a beast in its own den." They broke apart and returned to their posts. Aaron and Isaac Hawthorne had heard every word, their faces hard with resolve. Eli Hawthorne checked his cartridges again, jaw clenched so tight it ached. "Listen to me," Caleb said, drawing his sons in close. "What comes next may get ugly, bloodier than anything you've known. But we fight as one. We cover each other, and we remember who we are. We're Hawthorns," he said firmly. "We don't start fights, but we damn sure finish them." "How long do we wait?" Eli asked. "Until they make their move," Caleb replied. "Could be hours, could be days, but they'll come." Men like Silas Blackridge can't stand being challenged. As the afternoon shadows stretched across the canyon floor, each Hawthorne settled into position. They'd grown up hunting together, working side by side, living hard and close. Now that bond would be tested in fire. Waiting was its own kind of torment. 3 days passed in strained silence. They rotated watches, slept in shifts, rationed food and water. The cattle grazed calmly below, unaware of the storm tightening around them. On the third night, Luke caught it first, the careful, distant sound of hooves in the dark. He signaled the others awake with a soft whistle, their prearranged call. Within seconds, all 5 men were set, rifles raised, eyes sweeping the moonlit canyon. "How many?" Caleb whispered. Luke listened. 10, maybe 12 from the south, the rest covering north, Aaron said quietly. "Textbook pincer." "Decent planning," Caleb muttered. "But they're loud." "Either careless," Isaac added, "or they want us to hear them." "Could be a test," Luke said. "See how we react before committing everyone." Eli's young eyes caught movement along the rim. "Pa, men on the high ground." 4 at least, he added. Caleb swore under his breath. Silas was sharper than he'd hoped. They weren't just pushing the entrances. They were taking elevation, setting themselves up to pour lead into the canyon. A smart move, if they had the men and ammunition. "Change of plans," Caleb said fast. "Luke, Eli, you take the ridge shooters. They're exposed up there. Aaron, Isaac, hold the south approach. I'll cover the north." "That'll get you killed," Luke snapped. "You can't hold north alone." "I'm not holding it," Caleb replied, eyes flashing in the moonlight. "I'm making them hesitate." "Move," he ordered. "We've got 5 minutes, maybe less." Luke wanted to argue, but there was no time. He and Eli began scaling the western wall, using handholds they'd scouted by daylight. The rock was slick and unforgiving, but they climbed with practiced confidence. Below them, Aaron and Isaac crouched behind their barricade, watching shapes gather at the southern mouth. The first shot cracked from the rim, a warning round that sparked off stone near Aaron's cover. Then hell broke loose. Muzzle flashes exploded across the darkness as the Blackridge Men opened fire. Aaron and Isaac held steady, letting bullets tear into rock and shadow. Their father had drilled patience into them. First shot mattered. Panic killed. 23 rounds, Isaac counted calmly. Bad discipline. "They're nervous," Aaron said. "Good," Isaac replied. "Nervous men slip." Above them, Luke and Eli reached their perch. 4 silhouettes stood outlined against the stars, all attention fixed on the canyon below. They never saw the danger beside them. "Take the left 2, Luke whispered. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. 2 rifles spoke as one. 2 figures on the rim snapped backward, their screams ripping through the canyon as they crashed down the stone face. The remaining 2 spun wildly, trying to find their attackers in the darkness. But Luke Hawthorne and Eli Hawthorne were already gone, shifting positions, ghosts in the rock. Below, the sound of bodies hitting stone shattered the attackers' rhythm. Orders were shouted over one another. Someone yelled about demons in the cliffs. The assault unraveled into confusion. Using the chaos, Caleb Hawthorne slipped closer under cover of darkness, closing to within 30 yards. He spotted at least 8 men bunched together, arguing. He steadied his breathing and squeezed the trigger. The lantern burst in a wash of flame. Men screamed as fire caught clothes and gear. In the sudden light, Caleb fired 3 more shots in quick succession, each deliberate, each one finding its mark. The north entrance dissolved into panic. From a quarter-mile south, Silas Blackridge watched his carefully planned attack fall apart. He'd expected resistance, but not this. Not disciplined, lethal counterfire that turned numbers into a liability. "Pull back," he roared. "Fall out, regroup." No one argued. The Blackridge Men fled from both entrances, dragging wounded, leaving the dead where they lay. Their confidence shattered by an enemy they couldn't see well enough to fight. The Hawthornes let them go, conserving ammunition, refusing to shoot fleeing men. When silence finally settled over Canyon Creek, it was heavier than before, charged with the knowledge that blood had been spilled. Caleb gathered his sons at the center of camp, checking each of them by lamplight. "Everyone standing?" he asked. "Eli caught a graze," Luke said. "Nothing serious." Caleb examined the shallow cut along his youngest son's arm. With practiced hands, he cleaned and wrapped it. "That'll leave a scar," Caleb said. "Something to show your grandkids someday." "If we live that long," Eli muttered, trying and failing to sound light. "We will," Caleb said without hesitation. "Because we're better trained, better positioned, and better united." "They're fighting for money," Aaron Hawthorne added. We're fighting for each other. We dropped at least 6 of them, Isaac Hawthorne said. Maybe more. That'll make the rest hesitate. It'll make Silas desperate, Caleb corrected. And desperate men do reckless things. He lost face tonight, Caleb continued. In front of his own crew, he'll need a big move to take back control, even if it costs him. So, what's next? Isaac asked. Caleb studied his sons, sweat-streaked, exhausted, the weight of what they'd done settling heavy on their shoulders. Good men. But this was their first real fight, their first time taking lives. We stay sharp, Caleb said. We stay together, and we don't forget why we're here. Morning light revealed the cost of the night. 3 bodies lay near the south entrance, 2 more at the north. The 2 men from the rim lay broken among the rocks. Caleb had his sons help move the dead beyond the canyon and cover them with stone. Why? Eli asked quietly. They tried to kill us. Because they were still men, Caleb replied, stacking rocks with steady resolve. And we don't leave bodies for scavengers, not even enemies. And because when this is done, he added, I want you to remember you fought with honor. They worked under a brutal sun, building cairns in silence. The labor was grim and draining, taking most of the morning. When it was finished, Caleb removed his hat and bowed his head. Pa? Luke asked softly. Just saying a word, Caleb said. Somewhere out there are women who'll wonder why these men never came home. That pain didn't start here, but it ends here. The lesson settled deep. Violence carried echoes. It touched the guilty and the innocent alike. They'd killed to protect their own, and that was right. But righteousness didn't erase the weight. They'd just returned to camp when a lone rider appeared, advancing slowly beneath a white flag. Luke raised his rifle, but Caleb lifted a hand. Let him speak. The rider was barely more than a boy, 19 at most, pale, shaking. He stopped 50 yards out, spoke quickly, then nodded and rode off. An hour later, Silas Blackridge came on foot, hands raised to show they were empty. He walked toward the canyon mouth where all 5 Hawthorns waited, rifles fixed on his chest. Close enough, Luke said when Silas reached 20 feet. Silas stopped, eyes flicking from face to face, measuring, recalculating. Up close, he finally saw what he'd missed. These weren't farmers. They were men hardened by frontier life and bound by a father's will. You cost me 7 men, Silas Blackridge said flatly. 7 men, Silas Blackridge said tightly. And whatever standing I had left is crumbling. Half my outfit's already talking about riding out. You should have thought about that before you laid hands on my father. Luke Hawthorne replied, his voice cold as iron. Silas's jaw clenched, but he kept his tone measured. I'm here to make an offer. Walk away now, and you keep the land. My men move on. We forget this ever happened. Generous, Caleb Hawthorne said dryly. Especially coming from a man who's losing. Am I? Silas asked, his smile sharp and bitter. You're boxed into this canyon with limited supplies. I've still got 16 men, and I can hire more. Time's on my side, old man. Then why are you here? Isaac Hawthorne challenged. Why bargain if you're so confident? For a split second, Silas's mask slipped, irritation and something close to fear flashing through. Because I'm practical, he said. This fight's costing more than the land's worth. I'm offering a way out that lets both sides save face. Caleb studied him closely, reading the cracks beneath the bravado. Silas wasn't lying about everything, but enough. The Blackridge Men were splintering. Doubt was spreading through the ranks. This meeting wasn't strength, it was damage control. "Here's my counter," Caleb said quietly. "You and your men leave Montana, and you don't come back. Do that, and I won't hunt you like the yellow dog you are." Silas's face burned red. "You're in no position to make demands." "Aren't I?" Caleb motioned toward his sons, each holding a rifle with relaxed, lethal confidence. "We're dug in, supplied, and ready to wait out winter if we have to. You're bleeding men, and authority. Every day this drags on, you look weaker." Caleb continued. "How long before your own crew turns on you?" The truth landed hard. Silas's hand twitched toward where his pistol should have been. Then he remembered he'd come unarmed. "This isn't finished," he snarled. "Yes, it is," Caleb replied. "You just don't see it yet." Silas spun on his heel and marched back toward his camp, rage boiling under his skin. The parley had been a mistake. His men had seen it, seen doubt where there should have been dominance. "I'm riding out," one of the older outlaws said, already rolling his bedroll. "This job's cursed. You walk, you don't get paid," Silas snapped. "Can't spend money if I'm dead," the man shot back. "Those Hawthorns are different, Silas. Harder than regular folk. I've seen men like that before. Men who'll die before they bend," he added. "You can't break that." 5 more men nodded and began saddling up. Silas watched his crew unravel, powerless to stop it. By nightfall, only 8 remained, and their loyalty was thin at best. "What now?" Rafe Calder asked uneasily. Silas stared toward Canyon Creek, visible in the distance. Pride wrestled with survival. He'd built his name on never backing down, but he'd stayed alive this long by knowing when to fold a bad hand. "We leave at dawn," he said at last, the words tasting like ash. "Find easier prey." "And the Hawthorns?" Rafe asked. Silas's voice went hollow. "They won. Let them keep their rocks and dirt." Back in Canyon Creek, the Hawthorns held their watch through another tense night. When morning came, the ridgeline stood empty. The Blackridge Men were gone, vanished like smoke, leaving behind trampled grass and cold fire pits. "They're gone," Eli Hawthorne said, disbelief creeping into his voice. "They really walked away." "They didn't walk," Caleb corrected. "They chose survival over pride. The smartest thing Silas Blackridge ever did." Luke lowered his rifle, exhaustion finally settling in. "So what now? We head back?" "We go home," Caleb said. "See what can be saved. Rebuild what was lost." "That's what Hawthorns do," he added. "We endure." The ride back was quiet. Each man rode with his own thoughts. The cattle followed calmly, unaware how close they'd come to being all that remained of the Hawthorne legacy. When they crested the final rise and saw the ranch, the destruction hit like a blow. The house stood as a blackened frame. The barn was nothing but charred beams. Fences lay twisted and fallen. The earth itself bore scars. Caleb dismounted slowly, his 73 years suddenly weighing heavy. He walked through the ruins, each step stirring memories now turned to ash. "Pa?" Aaron Hawthorne said gently. "We can rebuild." "I know," Caleb replied. "Question is whether this old body's got another house left in it." "You won't be doing it alone," Luke said firmly. "We're all staying." "This land's ours?" Luke continued. "Fire doesn't change that." Eli kicked through the debris, then stopped. He bent down and lifted something carefully from the ashes. Clara Hawthorne's rosebush. The branches were scorched, the leaves gone, but the roots remained, alive, buried deep in Montana soil. "Look," Eli Hawthorne said quietly, holding it out to his father. It made it. Caleb Hawthorne took the rosebush with shaking hands, emotion rising hard in his chest. The flowers his wife had planted with care and patience had survived the fire. It felt like a message, like Clara Hawthorne herself reaching across the years, telling him not to surrender. "Then this is where we begin," Caleb said, his voice steadying. "We plant these first. Then we rebuild around them. Same ground, same foundation, same stubborn Hawthorne grit." In the weeks that followed, they worked from first light to sundown. Debris was hauled away, usable timber was salvaged. Slowly, piece by piece, the ranch took shape again. Word spread fast. Dustfall folk arrived with wagons, tools, and lumber, offering help without asking a thing in return. The tale of 5 men standing firm against the Blackridge Men rolled across Montana like prairie fire. 6 months later, Caleb stood on the porch of the new house, watching the sun settle low over his land. The home was smaller than before, plainer, but strong, built by his son's hands. Every beam carried lessons learned at their father's side. Along the railing, Clara's roses bloomed bright red against fresh-painted boards. Caleb brushed a finger across one petal, remembering her laugh, her smile, the way she used to hum while tending these very plants. "We did good, Clara," he murmured. "The boys turned out right." Luke Hawthorne stepped out onto the porch with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to his father and leaned against the rail beside him, both men watching the same sunset. They stood without speaking for a while. "I got word from town," Luke said at last. "Silas Blackridge was killed in Wyoming. Tried to rob the wrong bank." Caleb nodded once. "Can't say I'm surprised. Men like that don't grow old in bed." "You think trouble like that'll come again?" Luke asked. "Maybe," Caleb said. "World's full of folks who think they can take what isn't theirs." "But now they know," he added. "Hawthorns don't scare easy." Aaron, Isaac, and Eli joined them on the porch, each slipping into his place like it had always been there. The trial had drawn them closer, bonded by danger, fire, and survival. "Pa," Eli asked after a moment, "you ever regret staying? Ever think about selling out and moving somewhere safer?" Caleb looked at his youngest son, seeing both the boy he once was and the man he'd become. "Not for a second," he said. "This land holds your mother's bones. It's soaked in our sweat and our blood. That makes it worth fighting for." He smiled faintly. "And besides, where else would I find 4 sons foolish enough to stand down an army for their old man?" They laughed, the sound drifting across the Montana prairie as stars began to prick the darkening sky. The ranch wasn't as grand as it once had been, but it was theirs, earned through loyalty and resolve. In the distance, cattle grazed peacefully. A cool breeze carried the scent of roses. 5 men stood together, bound by blood, fire, and choice, ready to face whatever came next the same way they'd faced everything else. Together, as family, as Hawthorns. The story of Caleb Hawthorne and his sons reminds us that real strength isn't found in violence, but in loyalty, honor, and the courage to defend what truly matters. Caleb and his 4 boys proved that love, family, and principle are worth any cost. Until next time, partner, keep riding toward the sunset and never forget where you came from. This is Red Frontier, where legends endure and family always comes first. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for giving your time to this story. Some journeys shape us, and we hope this one left a mark on your heart. There are more paths ahead, more legends of love, hardship, and redemption beneath the western sky. Please subscribe, leave your thoughts, and travel with us once again. Thank you, and God bless. Aviso legal. Disclaimer. The stories presented here are creative expressions and may mix historical inspiration with dramatized scenes. AI tools contribute to some elements of voice, imagery, and structure, but every published story is refined by editors and creators to ensure authentic emotional impact. We honor YouTube's policies and do not generate deceptive likenesses or artificial depictions of real people. All audiovisual components are legally licensed. Any use, redistribution, or alteration of this content must be granted through written consent. Your presence here means a lot. Thank you for supporting artistic storytelling.